Hi, Ofir. Can you please introduce yourself and Movmenta a little bit for the people that already don't know the company and you? And thank you for accepting my invitation.
Thank you very much, Luis, and it's a pleasure to be here today. And I'm honored to contribute to this podcast. So I'm an entrepreneur for the last almost 30 years. I had plenty of businesses in my past in different industries. My background is accounting and finance, and what is making is a link between all the ventures or the adventures that I had in the past with the fact that whatever I did, it was related to passion that I had. On top of all of that, I'm a runner for the last 4 decades. So I did marathons and Ironmans. And actually, I'm now about 2 years now since I stopped running. And this is very, very well related to the topic of Movmenta that we are going to discuss today.
Okay, and you have a career in different sectors, right? Not
Yep.
sports. And what was the turning point where you realized that okay, now I want to be a founder and to have this new adventure for sports and underfoot like technology. So
Yeah.
where and how it happens to you?
So in 2014, I exited one of my companies to a British conglomerate. Actually, it's a very big company, 250 years old. And I relocated to the UK to specialize in restructuring and turnarounds of this company. And it was a pleasure and very interesting processes in my life, coming from being entrepreneur to work in the corporate life. And then pandemic came, and all the flights that I used to do on a weekly basis all over the globe stopped, and I had some time. So I figured out what can I do with my spare time, and I said, why not applying for executive MBA in London Business School? So I applied to the school, and it was a great journey because when I started to have all my electives and courses in the school, and first of all, I met great people, but one thing that was sitting in my head for years is a question that related to the shoes that I'm using as consumer. How come there is no technology in shoes? How come there is no data that I can get from my shoes? And it was related as well to that period of time that I started to have ongoing injuries in my knees and my hip, etc. So it was quite frustrating for me to see there is nothing there. So during my electives, I started to ask questions why there is no technology, and if there was technology or were technology in the past, why it failed, because we cannot see anything in the market today. And that was back in 2021. So I came from completely different mindset, and there was no plan to become an entrepreneur in the sport tech industry. But as I moved in this journey of my studies, I raised this idea that I had in my head with one of the professors in London Business School. And he told me, listen, this is interesting idea, what you're saying. And why not making introduction for the founder of Reebok? He is a good friend of mine, and have a chat with him and try to show with him your idea, and maybe we can take it from there. So I will stop here and I will talk about that shortly, but this is the context how I moved from very boring stuff that's related to finance and numbers and managing big and global businesses to something that is very cool, very fast, very young in the sports tech industry.
And yeah, my question is that you were in that MBA like business school, but and how hard it was to start trying to build something like deep tech. So with that engineering, I don't know, gap perhaps that you had. So how hard it was?
It's a very good question, and I think it's related to for each person is going to be a different answer. But I can say that when I came with this idea, and the idea was the initial idea was how can we know when running shoes are expired, and how can brands know about it? So this was the high level problems that we came to solve. And it is important to highlight that whenever you're coming with something that is completely new, you have no technology, you have no people, you have no talent, you have no money, you have no suppliers, and you have no clients. The only thing that you have is a dream. So addressing that point, I can say that it's like jumping from an airplane without a parachute and then to try to think how you're going to solve this problem because you are very short in resources and you need to move very, very fast and you need to be very, very creative in order to be able to survive. Everybody knows the statistics of surviving startups. So I think it's something to be prepared to, because it's not something that is going to be walking in the park in this kind of case.
Yeah, I love this product entrepreneurship compared to software because actually you started with a real problem that you personally faced and you see like, okay, let's try to create a solution. And it's not like using one AI and then you have all the answers, but you need to find the right people to collaborate or create prototypes and tests and this more and that industrial process is hard, but actually it's difficult to replicate. So at the end is one is defensible for you. So everything that you pass to create the product, it's a part of your knowledge base right now. So, and now you have Movmenta and you have the solo product. That's a real product that you can ship. And can you explain a little bit about the solo, what it is for people that don't know?
Yes, with pleasure. So I'm coming back to this rainy day with Joe Foster, the founder of Freebook. And when we sat in this cafeteria and we discussed that idea, he said, listen, if you can do that, it's going to change the industry for good. I have no idea how you're going to do it, but it can be something amazing. And just as a comment, Joe Foster became a shareholder in Movmenta quite early in the stage, and he is a very good contributor to the company since then, and is very valuable for us. We understood that, first of all, we did a very, very significant market analysis to understand what did other brands or other companies did in the past or still doing in the market, and what is the reason for failures. So this it took us a few months just to understand the scope of the market. So we understood a few things. First of all, we understood that majority of the technologies that have been there or still out there are measuring the performance of the user. They are not measuring the performance of the equipment. They are not measuring the performance of the shoe itself. So you have smartwatch, you have smart application, you have insoles and everything, and many, many other products, but majority of them are providing quite similar level of data. So we as consumers, we are bombed with a lot of data that not always is needed. What is missing is how our equipment is performing. So we realized that we need to develop something that can measure the shoe. And in order to be able to measure the shoe, we understood that it needs to be something super, super light. It needs to be something that is affordable for the mass market. We need to develop something that is durable for shocks. Because when you think about a runner, you need to multiply his body weight when he's running about 3 or 4 times. So it can be hundreds of kilograms on that kind of technology. And then something that was very important from our perspective was that it should be something that there is no need to maintain, which means no need to charge, no need to do anything with it. You just use it whenever you want during the lifespan of your shoe, which means it needs to be battery-less. So taking all those factors, this is where we started to go to the drawings and to start to think about what do we need to do. I met in London Business School my co-founder, Xavier. Xavier was part of my cohort, and his background is engineering. He's a mechanical engineer in the autonomous car industry. This is his background. And we added to our team another guy that he's from the robotic industry, and he's an entrepreneur by himself, and he's a mechanical engineer as well. So we started from day one, 3 people. One is from finance, 2 guys are from engineering and strategy, a lot of strategy. And then we started to work about the solution. So one, we defined the problem, then we worked on the solution. So just to give you a sense, that solution that we started with Solo about 4 years ago, we are almost about 100 versions after. So it took us very, very long time to get to the point that we can tick all the boxes of what we defined as the technical solution that we need to deliver. And this made it very, very hard to achieve. It was a very frustrating process, and there was need for a lot of creativity in order to be in position that can be achieved.
And you also talk a lot about sustainability and digital tracking, whatever. So this is something that you thought from the beginning or something that came later during the process?
So, when you're starting to solve one problem, you many times realize that that product can be something that can address other problems that you didn't think from the beginning. But this is something that I'm very passionate about it as well. When you're talking about recycling and sustainability, just to give a sense, the global production of shoes is around 25 billion pairs of shoes per annum. It means 50 billion shoes per annum. And more than 95% of it is not recycled. And this is a very big topic. It's very hard to recycle shoes. It's a very complex product with dozens of different components of different materials, and nothing is being done for that. So there are specialized recyclers today in the market. But when you think about it, there is no awareness to the need to recycle. And on top of it, there is no technology that can measure when that should have been recycled and where and how you can build a big data that can be shared with everyone. So there is nothing out there. And part of the thing is about Solo that we're giving to each shoe that we produce with this technology an identity on the day it has been produced. And that means that actually we can track that shoe. And if we are using the relevant technology on the recycler side, we will be able to read and track that shoe that has been recycled, which means that we can communicate it with the end user, we can communicate it with the brand, we can communicate it with community, with governments, and then you can start gathering data. So for us, the sustainability part is super important, and this we see it as part of our contribution. So it's not a profit center for Movmenta, but this is something that we would like to contribute and to work with other parties to educate everyone, including retailers, including brands, including the end users, to build something that is going to be sustainable for the long term. This is one thing. Other thing is that the technology that we have today, it's like a small computer, which means we can adjust the technology with different applications beyond the ability to know when shoe is expired. That means that, for example, we can provide digital passport of the shoe. But that means that we can work with all the value chain and we can add all the components that on that shoe and to understand who produced the shoe and to work with regulations in order to ensure that this shoe is being produced with the best materials. So the consumer can see that, we can be educated about that. And this information is not out there today. Nobody can provide it today.
And Ofir, you mentioned about Mr. Foster, right? So, and you have other people on board with you on the cap table, like partners of Movmenta. So how they are actually contributing now that you have an idea that somehow validated that idea? How can they support growth and expansion, or I don't know, pivoting, whatever? So how valuable is that credibility and experience that you have on your board right now?
It's a very important point. And when we're talking about difficulties in establishing a tech company with deep tech and something that is not existing, from my experience, I have bad experiences with the wrong partners and the wrong shareholders. So it's very, very important for any kind of entrepreneur is to choose the power team around him, the stakeholders around him, specifically the shareholders and specifically the board that he's working with. This is something that if you have the right people, it can be a very strong power. And if the wrong people, it can diminish the business and kill the business very fast. So this is something to consider. One story that I can tell about one of our shareholders is Misha Zverev. Misha Zverev is an ex-tennis player. His brother is one of the leading tennis players in the world today. And in 2023, we went to ISPO Munich. ISPO Munich is the biggest sport show in the world. And part of ISPO Munich, there is competition of startups related to tech and other initiatives. And we applied to this competition with no expectations. And luckily, we won the first place on the category of technology and the platforms. And that was a game changer for us because one of the judges on that stage, on that event, was Misha Zverev. And after that event, Misha came to me, and we spoke, and it was a very good chemistry. And immediately we realized there is a lot to discuss. 6 months later, Misha became a shareholder in our company and is a great contributor to our day-to-day with his connections, wisdom, experience, etc., etc. So that is one story. And another story can be related to strategic partners. For example, about a year ago, after a long process, we added to our cap table a very well-known company in the footwear industry. That company name is Arkema. And Arkema is one of the biggest suppliers of chemicals to the footwear industry whenever it's related to the midsole components. So just to give you a sense, about 80% of the global production of midsoles for football shoes are coming from that company. So they heard about our technology and they were very, very excited. And the reason for that was because with this technology, beyond the fact that we can alert the users when their shoes are expired, we can educate the suppliers of the industry how they can improve their products. Because imagine if I can measure millions of users all over the globe, different profiles, different climates, different terrains, different usages, and then to share this data with somebody like this company, it's something that is super valuable for them in order to keep being a leader in this market. So Arkema, they are shareholders in our company, and they are acting today as our sales arm globally. And they are very, very helpful, and it's a great team to have on board as well, just as an example.
Yeah, and interesting that I know Arkema, so I'm following the news and the idea of international expansion using Arkema sport, whatever. So, but you just mentioned the soccer shoes as well. So, and how do you see like Solo or Movmenta being used or having the same efficiency for other sports out of running?
So at the moment, we are Solo. Initially, we started with running, which is again, the total addressable market of running is very big, but it's smaller when you compare it to the athletic footwear overall. And during this process that we started to do trials with runners, we realized that this technology or technologies can be very useful to other sport activities. When you're talking about tennis or you're talking about basketball, by the way, when you're talking about day-to-day shoes or working shoes, people are working long days. For example, if you're talking about nurses in hospitals or any kind of day work that you have, nobody is considering the shoes as something that is part of your health and safety. And if we can provide this information and if we can give the alerts that, listen, that shoe is not good anymore for this person, the employer will be in position that he can take responsibility for that. And that employee will be able to work longer, will be safer, and will be able to work for longer years when we're talking about the longevity of working experience, etc. One thing that we are aware today, we understand today, that people are going to live more. Whoever is going to burn to be a child, whoever is a child today is going to be living until the age of 100 and more. And part of the thing is to give the tools to people to have better life, well-being, and be protected from things that can cause them harm, because it's not enough to live longer life. It is important to have the tools to be able to do any kind of physical activities or other things that you can do as an elder person. So if I think about my grandparents or my parents, for them, running activity was not part of their day-to-day. But for me, when I'm on my 50s, it's something that it's my day-to-day, but I cannot do it anymore. And part of it is related to the fact that I didn't have the needed education, awareness, and tools to use my equipment in the right way to protect myself. So taking all of that together, we see overall the sports industry is something very exciting, because today in Movmenta, we have different technologies to different use cases. And definitely we are looking forward to establish those technologies in different variances to different user applications.
And you mentioned those names that are on board, so they have made investments like business angels or even Arkema like a partners. But for growing, you're going to need more investments and VC money problems. And talking about this topic, how do you see that this investment scenario in Europe, specifically for sports tech? I know that we spoke a little bit about that before, but I'd like to hear your thoughts.
So first of all, my experience in fundraise is for the last 4 years as a company that's growing fast and had its own needs regarding capital. It was a very frustrating process overall. So I think whoever gets into this journey when you talk about the EU or UK, the market is very conservative and it's very difficult to raise capital unless you have the right connections, which is the key. And today I can say that it's easier to raise capital in the US or other location rather than in the EU.
You think that this is actually a structural problem of Europe, or is more related to this specific 4 or 5 years that we are with different problems on a global scope?
I think so because we started in the early stages with angels, so it's not related to structure of organization or something like that. I think it's related a lot to the mindset of the investors. This is one. Two, it's related to tax benefits. So in the UK, for example, we have this SEIS and EIS benefit, which gives the investor much more comfort to take risks. And it's a great mechanism to reduce the level of that and to improve the chances for them to get their investment back on multiple of that. So I think overall, the problem is in the mindset, in the culture, in the ability to take risks and the ability of governments to encourage everyone to take their steps for innovation. And again, part of the success comes with risks and it's always part of it. And the thing is that eventually as an entrepreneur, you need to measure the time and the energy that you invest in order to raise capital. And if you invest too much time on that, you're missing the point because you're not establishing a company in order to raise money. You're establishing a company in order to deliver a product and solutions. And once the scale goes, for the direction of fundraising, we are missing the point here. And this is something I think overall needs to be improved in EU and around.
Yeah. So is saying that, what's your plan for the try to have not that necessity of external investment, so try to keep your runway as long as possible, be profitable, and how's your plans for Movmenta with that view that you have?
So first of all, we are in a good place today because we are now at our fourth round. We defined it as a seed round, but we had a few before, and it's much easier now. And the reason that it's much easier because we are now going to launch in the coming days our first product to the market, which means that we will start to generate income. And then once you have traction and you have income and you're visible in the market, it's much easier to raise capital. And we can see the difference. And because until now, Movmenta worked behind the scenes. And as I said earlier, nobody knows you and nobody trusts you. And it completely makes sense. So it makes all the process of trying to increase the traction on you as potential investment much, much harder. So I think the first steps of a business, the first couple of years, unless you are in the AI area or the SaaS area, when you start to generate income very fast, it's a very harsh journey.
Okay. Thanks for sharing your view of it. So I am a runner myself, so I like to run. I faced this same problem that you faced when you started that idea. I have different shoes, and I like to understand when should I buy a new one, then and how far I am of going to a store and buying a shoe with solo equipment inside.
So it's going to be visible this year. So you'll be able to order it this year with the first brand. And the brand that we are working with is Kipron. We are working with Kipron for a few years now. And we had a very long journey with Kipron. Whoever doesn't know, Kipron is part of the Decathlon group. So it's going to come, and we really believe that it's going to be with other brands very, very soon because there is a real need. And it is important to highlight that this is complementary information that is not existing today. And it's something that is very useful to the consumer. There are many directions this technology is going to take those products in the future, and it's going to improve the experience of the users as well, because that technology gives the ability to use data. And once this data is available, the brands can be in touch directly with consumers. And again, it opens a lot of opportunities for both parties. And we really, really believe in the win-win situation here for everyone, because again, nobody is doing it at the moment, and it's going to change the industry for good. And I'm looking forward that somebody like yourself will have different brands, different models with solo or equivalent technologies that we are developing, and that you will be able to see this data from all your shows in one space, very easily, very friendly user. And this is our vision. So it will become something that it's mandatory. It's not something that is going to be nice to have. It will be something that it must have.
Phil, thank you so much for your time. Is there anything else that you like to share with the audience here about Movmenta and about the future?
What I will be happy to share that I think as we're going on forward with this journey, we just realize and understand how much even, us entrepreneurs and the founder of the company, we didn't understand the effect of our day-to-day activities on our body. When you're talking about biomechanics, for example, what does it mean? What is the level of heat of your shoe on the ground? What kind of effect does it have in your joints? And what is the long-term effect of that on your joints? So what we're trying to do in Movmenta is to make that link and to tell you as a user, based on your personal profile, for example, your body weight and the climate that you're running, listen, that shoe that you're using now is causing you now damage. Be aware of it. And the point is trying to say here for everybody that is to be aware of that and to prepare yourself for longevity, live better, train better, and take care of yourself. And this is part of it.
Thank you, Phil. Thanks so much for what you are building. And I spoke with you that we are personally, we love to invest in companies that are making our world better, not worse. So, and I think that Movementa is in that way. And thank you again for your time. And I wish you all the best for Movementa.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.